in New York. And since then, the Sunday gathering has evolved into different demographics, different emphases. But let's consider that bhakti, Krishna consciousness, is always a festival. The festival of bhakti centers on chanting, dancing, taking prasad, associating with devotees in order to become more inspired. Prasad plays such an important role. Most of you probably don't know, but in 1976, Srila Prabhupada had his secretary send a letter to all ISKCON centers. Maybe Balabhadra Prabhu remembers. He said, I've noticed a decline in the quality of the Sunday feast prasad. And he said, every Sunday feast has to have these preparations. And he listed 13. It's all part of the festival. We come together as Krishna instructs in Bhagavad Gita. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashita bhajanti ananya manaso yatra bhuttaramavya. What do the Mahatmas do? With determination, they engage in devotional service. And in the next verse, Krishna describes the symptoms of the Mahatma. Satatam kirtayanto mam, always chanting my glories. So that's the spirit in which we should come together on Sunday. To honor ecstatic prasad, to blissfully chant the glories of Krishna, and to associate with devotees. And how do we associate with devotees? By inquiring what accelerates our spiritual advancement and what will impede our spiritual advancement. Doing so is a festival because the goal is Krishna's pleasure. We may not think like that. The goal of the Sunday festival is Krishna's pleasure. We may think it's for my pleasure. But gradually, as we become more purified, we understand that Krishna's pleasure includes our pleasure automatically. That takes some realization. At first, some of the main reasons why we gather on Sunday may be out of tradition. That's certainly laudable, certainly helpful. Out of necessity, maybe our parents have forced us to come. But gradually, just by coming, because of rules and regulations, in order to be an upstanding devotee, you must come to the Sunday program. Gradually, a taste develops. As many of you know, bhakti has two major phases. What Prabhupada would call the therapeutic stage and the relishing stage. So sometimes we wonder, the therapeutic stage, when I do devotional activities because I must, is there any taste in that? Yes. The acharyas explain that even in the preliminary stages of bhakti, there's a whiff of Krishna prema. It's not all a struggle in which you have to do things because you have to. I like the definition given in Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers by His Divine Grace. His definition of what is sadhana bhakti. He said, sadhana bhakti means you have to do it because I say. Very distinct, very clear. And our tendency is we don't like to do things just because someone says do it. We want to be our own boss. We want to be free, independent. But the way material existence is structured is that the more you indulge, engage materially, you don't become free, you become more entangled. But this is difficult to see without knowledge. So one of the prime purposes of the Sunday gathering is that knowledge is imparted. What is Maya? What is Krishna? How to develop love for Krishna. Being in this temple room back in 1975 when Prabhupada came here. I remember the last question of Prabhupada's question and answer session. I was way in the back in this corner. I had raised my hand very timidly to ask the last question. I had a question in mind that was burning for me. Why is it that even the Gyanis, the mental speculators, in order to achieve moksha, liberation, need a speck of bhakti? I was going to ask that to Prabhupada. So I was very timidly raising my hand in that corner right there. But then my godbrother, my Sankirtan partner, beat me to it. He was right up front. Narantara Prabhu. He asked Prabhupada, with his Narantara Prabhu's enthusiasm and dynamism, Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? He wanted Prabhupada to say, right, but Prabhupada responded simply, if you love Krishna. So this Sunday feast is meant for developing love of Krishna. Even in an ordinary relationship, you develop attraction for the other person or persons by discussing their characteristics, their activities, their qualities, how they are doing. And so by coming together on Sunday to talk about Krishna, we become purified and we make progress on the path to love of Krishna. So we need to be reminded of that reality, that the goal of bhakti is to love Krishna. Everyone wants love, whether they admit it or not. Everyone wants to be appreciated. But those desires in us will never be satisfied unless we make progress toward loving Krishna. Loving Krishna means loving the things that Krishna wants. In the therapeutic stage of bhakti, we're trying to rise above material contamination. We should never forget that this world is indeed a place of contamination, and we're constantly on guard against pollution. Pollution of the consciousness. People talk about air pollution, water pollution, but what about consciousness pollution? There'll be no solution lasting for the environmental problem unless you deal with toxic consciousness. You can clean up, let's say if you succeed in cleaning up all the water, cleaning up all the air, cleaning up the soil. A short time later, human beings will pollute it again. What happens if you go to another planet? Hypothetically saying that's possible. You transport all the human beings to another planet. What are they going to do there? They're going to trash it out. Because it's the same consciousness, the same mentality. So in this way, we can see that bhakti is the solution to all material problems. Sometimes we may think, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I'm looking at Bhagavad Gita once a week. I try to offer all my food. But what about the immense problems of the world? I was just talking about that with our guest from Tallahassee. An intelligent person understands there are massive problems. Where do you start to make an actual solution? Sometimes spiritual people are accused of focusing so much on the hereafter that you become inept in dealing with the pressing problems all around now. But what about getting to the root of all those problems? Who knows how to do that? This is what the Krishna Bhakta is striving for. Rather than a piecemeal solution, trying to solve the problem over here, solve the problem over there, what is underneath it all? The magnitude of the root of all the problems is what bhakti is dealing with. Forgetfulness of Krishna. This is not just some kind of religious concept. Forgetfulness of Krishna, forgetfulness of God. As if remembrance of Krishna is some accessory that we add on to the main reality of normal life in the material world. Let me go to the temple on Sunday and remember Krishna for a few moments as an accessory to the main thrust of my life, the real world, which is making money, struggling to keep a family together, wondering what to do about the ecological situation, the political situation, the economic situation. And then over here, way on the side, we have a little thing called bhakti. The more you understand that Bhagavad Gita gets to the root of all problems, the more solid your advancement in bhakti will be. An intelligent, aware person wants to solve the human problem. But what exactly is the human problem? Arjuna is demonstrating that in chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. His situation, the situation confronting Arjuna, as you know, is so unfathomable for us. He's caught in the middle of a family feud, a battle between persons known to him on both sides. So he says to Krishna, as you know, how can any good come about from all this? I don't see any good outcome. Whether we win the war or we lose the war, both ways it's a disaster. Arjuna is caught in a massively problematic material situation. This is the situation in which Bhagavad Gita is spoken. This is a situation seemingly so intractable, so unsolvable. This is the situation that Arjuna eventually takes shelter of Krishna to solve. So what do we see in the world all around us today? Increasing body identification. Exactly what is condemned in the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita. It would seem to you that Arjuna was right. Krishna, how can we fight this war? So much social havoc will happen. So many warriors will die. Their wives will be left without husbands. The family structure will break down. All of society will become polluted. Krishna, I've heard that those who destroy the family tradition reside in hell. And what does Krishna tell him? You're speaking very eloquently, very learnedly, but you're actually a fool. Krishna called him a fool indirectly. Someone with brains doesn't talk the way you're talking. And Krishna gives a whole lecture on how we are different from the body as the beginning of all problems. You get that part of the equation wrong, everything else in the equation is mistaken. So what do you see happening in the world today? No matter what continent, no matter what country, people are taking shelter of bodyism. They've forgotten how much all this bodyism, how much problem, pain, misery, calamity it has caused. It's like human beings never learn, and they don't learn materially. This is shocking for some of us to understand. As Queen Kunti explains in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, she's the most liberated woman. What does she say? Bhavesmin klishyamananam avijja kama karma bhi. The living entity is struggling in this material atmosphere. And that struggle is always extremely problematic because of avidya, because of our being covered by the nescience potency of the Supreme Lord. Ignorance, dark cloud. We can't see straight, we can't think straight, we can't desire properly. And so avidya, nescience, leads to kama, perverted desire, material desire. And then Queen Kunti explains the next step in the cycle. Avidya, then kama, and then karma. Materialistic activities which produce reactions. Who can see this struggle? Again and again, humanity makes the same mistake. You would never think that just 80 years ago, in the mid-20th century, 80 million people died in World War. And 25 years before that, 25 million people died in World War I. But still, nations, political leaders are barking at one another. Everyone's pointing the finger at the other. Where's the human progress? Where's the human intelligence? The nuclear spending is increasing. Your dear land of the free and home of the brave spends more on nuclear weapons than all the other nuclear powers in the world combined. 9 nuclear powers. The US outspends all of them on nuclear weaponry. In God we trust. And look at how many silos we have. This is the nescience potency that's affecting the whole world. Because you might, now let me explain, you might think, by taking shelter of body identification, what's really so bad about that? Indeed, some social thinkers say, because nationalism, ethno-nationalism is so familiar to human beings, we've got to figure out a way how to organize society positively based on ethno-nationalism, because it's just the natural thing. I'm from this land, or I have this kind of body, and you are from another land, or you have another kind of body. So these social thinkers are saying now, it comes so naturally, you can't stamp it out. We tried for one world, globalism, we tried all that. You are a citizen of the world. People can't buy that for long. No, I am this body, and you are of the other body. So the idea is, try to make something positive out of bodyism. How can you do that? The more you take shelter of body identification, the more bewildered you become, because you're putting yourself in the grip of the avidya potency, the nescience potency. It's not that Krishna's illusory energy just sits back and says, just identify with your body, there'll be no problem. You'll be enlightened. It's illusion, but It'll be all right. Peacefully, people can exist thinking they are the body. There'll be world peace in spite of body identification. That's why no one is trying to educate that you're not this body, because they think we can establish world peace regardless of people's body-centric thinking, body misidentification. There's still going to be world peace. Have you seen it happen? More than ever before, bhakti knowledge is needed. So this coming together on Sunday is a chance to reinvigorate ourselves in spiritual understanding. It's a celebration of the spirit soul in relation with the Supreme Soul, in relation to Krishna. This Sunday gathering brings you to the conclusion of what Arjuna says in chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita. Nashta moha smritir labda. O Krishna, my illusion is now gone. Karisye vachanam tava. I'll act according to what you say. Now, normally you would think if someone says, I'll act according to your command, that's very demeaning. It's lowering the self-esteem, which is the greatest offense these days. Should always act to uplift your self-esteem. Just like at the workplace, especially in the finance industry, the corporate industry, the IT industry, you've got to manage your personal brand so that you always are looking good. You've got to be mindful of that. I was in Noida in India recently, and the IT devotees there are telling me, those devotees working in the IT industry, you've got to be one step ahead of your employer, because they are going to try to get rid of you once they suck out of you all they want. So you've got to be one step ahead and have your next job lined up. And you have to keep managing your personal brand so that more luster, more effulgence is on your CV. You've got to, it's a constant effort. You can't slack off for a moment. So I asked them, well, how long do you last at a job at the same place? Well, after 1 year, you start thinking about moving on. This is a struggle. Of course, our devotees have to do what they have to do in order to support their family. Nevertheless, we should recognize it's a struggle. And what if there's such a struggle which is totally unrelated to Krishna? This is the greatest disaster in life. To struggle all for material purposes. So we were explaining about how human beings are poised on the brink now of another global catastrophe, and they don't seem to care. They're barking at each other. I was just in Europe last month. I was in Ukraine, Hungary, UK, and you can see the barking going on very intensely there. The BBC, the UK National News Service, asked the Russian foreign minister, you're threatening to position nuclear missiles in countries bordering Western Europe. Do you really mean that? Are you bluffing? And the foreign minister replied, it's a bluff until it's not a bluff. What if there's no more UK? They're talking like this. Both sides are barking at each other, ready to slaughter millions of people just to get control of this tract of land, that tract of land. More than ever, the peace formula of bhakti is needed. And that peace formula of bhakti begins with our understanding, as Krishna gave in the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, you're different from the body. But let me explain more. Sociologists have pointed out that there's a kind of false strength you get by identifying with your body. I am a this. You feel a sense of pride and illusory energy surge through you. I belong to this group. Otherwise, you don't know what to do with your life. But by identifying with your body, it gets a false sense of membership. I belong to this group. They belong to the other group. So that gives you a sense of mission, falsely, of course. I get strength by identifying with my group. I get strength by criticizing you because you're of the other group. And of course, we feel threatened by any other group. Who is going to take our power away from our group? So then you have the big fear of overrun, outbred, and replaced. What's going to happen to our land when it's overrun by other bodily groups, taking away all our power, replacing us? Immigrants pouring in, strange people with alien bodies. They're going to replace us. They'll take all the power. This bodyism is infecting the whole world like a massive pandemic. Who can see that? How can you have peace as long as there's body misidentification? So the first two chapters of Bhagavad Gita are more relevant than ever. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago to Arjuna, but that wisdom is timeless. The Shastra explains that by aiming his instructions at Arjuna, Krishna has instructed all people in all times and all places. And at the end of the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 24, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That chapter is like an overture for the 10th canto. There, Shukadeva Goswami explains that Krishna, knowing the age of Kali is soon to come, enacted pastimes in such a way that the conditioned souls could attain the ultimate benefit of life, even in Kali Yuga, just by remembering and discussing Krishna's activities. So those of you who are in the IT industry, you've heard the expression that content is king. But Krishna is the king of the content makers. He knows how to do his pastimes in such a way that any sane person would be attracted. Of course, the problem is how to produce sane people. Where do you find them? The pollution is so all-encompassing. Polluted consciousness, toxic consciousness. So Krishna is the #1 content creator. He purposely acts in such a way as to attract you. Come join me. Come dance with me. Come be in my pastimes. Why are you rotting in the material world? You think you have so many important things to do. But at the time of death, it's all yanked away from you. Even while you're alive, it's yanked away from you. I was reading today about Nanda Maharaj in Gokul celebrating Krishna's appearance. What a festival they put on. First of all, Nanda Maharaj gave charity to the Brahmanas. He wanted the blessings of the Brahmanas upon his son. And then you had all different types of praisers and glorifiers chiming in with their artistic contribution. You had the suttas. They would recite histories from the ancient Puranas. You had the Magadhas. They would recite histories of great royal dynasties. You had the Vandis. They would offer prayers in general as suitable for the occasion. And then you had musicians. The acharyas explained that the musicians continuously played because they were never satisfied enough to stop it. Just the ecstasy kept increasing and increasing, so the musicians kept playing and playing and playing. And then the charity being given. I know it's hard for you to believe that Nanda Maharaj gave away 2 million cows. Well, how does even 1 million or 500,000 cows fit into Vrindavan? But Vrindavan is not a material terrain. It expands and contracts according to Krishna's desires. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj was telling me how he witnessed one devotee asking Prabhupada, it said that in the Shastra that Krishna, by the time evening came in Braj, he was way on the other side of Braj. How did he make it back to his home? Such a distance. How did he cover such a distance? He's way on the other side, opposite side. It's a long walk to get back home in time before night. So how did he do it? The distance is so great. Prabhupada just replied, he takes big steps. Along with that, we know Vrindavan expands and contracts according to the Leela that's happening. So somehow or other, Nanda Maharaj was able to give 2 million cows, all decorated with silver-plated hooves and gold-plated horns. Where do you get that? Where does a farmer get that kind of wealth from? He's not working in IT. He's not working in banking. So you think, that's impossible. A farmer? You think of a farmer in your village in India, if you come from a village. 2 million cows, silver-plated hooves, gold-plated horns. And then 7 mountains of grains covered with opulent cloths, with jewels embedded in the cloth. This is what Nanda Maharaj is giving away. He's worshiping the Devatas, he's worshiping the Brahmanas, he's worshiping the ancestors. Oh, what is this? What kind of bhakti is this? Doesn't Bhagavad Gita say, don't worship the Devatas? That worship is actually meant for Krishna. Water the tree at the root. Focus on Krishna, and you benefit in every way. There's no need to bribe the Devatas, bribe the ancestors. But Nanda Maharaj's mentality was what? I want all the blessings for my new son, Krishna, as possible. So yes, Devatas, Brahmanas, ancestors, whoever you are, bless my son Krishna. He's 100% Krishna conscious, without thinking that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that way, he's giving Krishna so much pleasure, spontaneous love of Krishna in Vatsalya praying, parental love. Krishna doesn't want Nanda Maharaj to know he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That ruins Krishna's enjoyment. Or better put it, lessens Krishna's enjoyment. Vasudeva and Devaki, they knew he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why the Acharyas say Krishna appeared to them first in a four-handed form, because they knew he's God. And then Devaki requests, how can we hide a four-armed baby. Can you please change into your more human-like form? Although some acharyas, like Baladev Vidyabhushan, say that the human form can mean either the four-handed form or the two-handed form. In any case, Krishna appeared for Vasudeva and Devaki in a four-handed form because they knew he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai, they didn't think that. There's one time when Nanda Maharaj had an inkling that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he saw what happened when Krishna rescued him, rescued Nanda Maharaj from the watery kingdom of Varunadev. Nanda Maharaj saw how Varunadev treated Krishna, offering prayers, such reverence. Not only Varunadev was there, but other big devatas were there also, all offering prayers to Krishna. We were explaining this a few days ago. It seemed that Varunadev had made an offense through his servant, and Varunadev took the blame. My servant didn't know what he was doing, dragging Nanda Maharaj to my kingdom, thinking that Nanda Maharaj had made a mistake, bathing in the Yamuna at the wrong time. Technical detail. Actually, Nanda Maharaj was correct. There was just a few minutes remaining of Dwadasi. And so Nanda Maharaj was eager. But Varuna's servant saw it as a violation. It's still dark. It's the wrong time for bathing in the Yamuna. But if you look at the technicalities in total, Nanda Maharaj was still correct. But in any case, Varuna's servant didn't understand Krishna, didn't understand who Nanda Maharaj is, Krishna's father, didn't understand bhakti. Come with me, we're going through a portal in the Yamuna River to Varunadev, my master. I'm bringing you to him. Varunadev was a little nervous. It seems I'm making an offense. He took ownership of the problem. He told Krishna, my servant has wrongly done this. I'm his master. I also get the blame. But I just wanted to see you. Now you may say, why couldn't Varunadev go to Braj to see Krishna? He knew that's not his place. He knew better. He's a royal official devata. He's not a Brijbasi. So that was reason number one. Reason number two, why Varunadev didn't go to Vrindavan to see Krishna, but instead, by way of his servant, brought Krishna to him, because Krishna came to rescue his father, Nanda Maharaj. The second reason is that Varunadev thought, how wonderful it will be to have Krishna in my own home. So Varunadev offered so many prayers to Krishna. Take whatever you want from my kingdom. Take all the jewels you want. In fact, take me. I'm the owner of the jewels. When I say everything is yours, that includes me. Take me too. Krishna was very pleased by Varunadev's bhakti. And Nanda Maharaj is astonished. What's all this awe and reverence and worship going on to my boy Krishna? So Krishna took, with Varuna's consent, Krishna took Nanda Maharaj back through the portal in the Yamuna River to the bank of the Yamuna. And all the cowherd men who had been alarmed because of the disappearance of Nanda Maharaj into the Yamuna, they had called out to Krishna, Krishna, Rama. Krishna actually was not nearby. He was taking rest The acharyas explain, on a flower bed somewhere. Flower bed generally means when Krishna's resting on a flower bed, he's having special pastimes. So, immediately Krishna appears on the bank of the Yamuna. The cowherd men explain, Varunadev's servant took him through the Yamuna River, he's gone. Krishna asked, where's the spot that he disappeared into the Yamuna? The cowherd men showed him. Krishna dove into that spot, and that's how he got to Varunadev's kingdom. So now they've gone back. Krishna has brought Nanda Maharaj back to the bank of the Yamuna. The cowherd men are all relieved. Still, sunrise hadn't happened. This all happened in the pre-dawn hours. Of course, there were some very intimate scenes going on at the bank of the Yamuna. The gopis were in complete distress about Krishna's disappearance into the water. Srimati Radharani, Kavi Kanapur explains, had collapsed. And one of her girlfriends thought the only way to revive her is to tell her Krishna's coming. So one of the Sakhis spoke, Krishna's coming. Immediately, Srimati Radharani comes out of her collapse, opens her eyes wide. But where is Krishna? No Krishna. She goes back into her total collapse. So when Krishna reappears with Nanda Maharaj, everyone is rejuvenated. And then the cowherd men start conversing with Nanda Maharaj. What's going on? What happened? And Nanda Maharaj tells them all about what happened in Varuna's kingdom. Suddenly the cowherd men realize, your son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You told us, Nanda Maharaj, that Garga Rishi said this boy would be like Narayan. Now we understand. He is Narayan. They said to Nanda Maharaj, since your son is Narayan, and we're all related to you in a village relationship, we should get benefits from your son being Narayan. Because remember, everyone's related in this village. We all know each other. What? The cowherd men were thinking, what is going to be our next destination? We want to know. So the amazing thing is, as the acharyas point out, the Vatsalya Rasa, the parental love of Nanda Maharaj and the elders, the elder cowherd men, was not slackened in the slightest while understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very unusual situation. Their Vatsalya Prem had not slackened in the least while they're talking like this. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What benediction is he going to give us? Can he tell us our next destination? So that's when Krishna spoke. Double talk. Janovai, loka etasmin, avidya, kama, karma bhi. The verse resembling partially what Queen Kunti spoke. Krishna said, it's amazing how people don't know what their next destination is because of avidya, because of kama, because of karma. It's amazing. But actually, when Krishna talks about jana, he's actually talking about his own people, the Brijbasis. But you can take it another way. Conditioned souls have no idea what their next destination is. They're covered by the avidya, nescience potency. They have kama, material desire, and they have karma, material activities. But it's a double talk by Krishna. He's actually referring to the Brijbasis. My people, they don't know that they're at the pinnacle of all destinations. They're in Braj. the pinnacle of sweetness. They don't know that. They think Varuna Dev's kingdom is higher. They think maybe the Brahmajyoti is higher. They have no idea that they're at the pinnacle of existence. How do you explain a Vijja Kama Karma be? How can the Brijbasis have a Vijja? Nescience. They have ignorance caused by Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya covers them so that they don't think Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so Krishna can enjoy better and they can freely reciprocate their love better. So they have special kind of avidya, not material avidya. Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. Yoga Maya avidya, which produces kama, not material lust, but the desire to please Krishna. And that desire, that intense desire to please Krishna, results in karma, bhakti karma, pure devotional activities for pleasing Krishna. So in this way, Krishna decided, let me show them, let me give them a bit of a tour so they can realize that there's no place better than Vrindavan. I'll give them a sample of being merged in the impersonal Brahman. To be merged in the impersonal Brahman means the cowherd men had their rasa suspended. They actually merged into Brahman for a brief moment. Krishna brought them right out of it, because how can life go on with the cowherd men being merged into Brahman? Krishna brought them right out, which is normally very difficult to do. Next stop, Vaikuntha. Krishna showed them Vaikuntha. The cowherd men were amazed to see the opulence of Vaikuntha, but where's Gopal Krishna? Finally, Krishna showed them Goloka Vrindavan. And what was the cowherd men's reaction? It looks just like our hometown. Amazing. So we've gathered here to glorify Krishna, chanting, dancing, taking prasad. That's the real function of human beings. And the more human beings participate in chanting, dancing, taking prasad, discussing Krishna, the more they come out of body misidentification, their consciousness becomes purified, and the world is a much better place. Any questions? Comments from our learned Pandit Balabhadra Prabhu. Yes, coming together to become closer to Krishna. That should be our aspiration. If we had all care for ourselves, for our families, and for the world, we want to maximize the coming closer to Krishna. So this Sunday gathering has that important function, most important function. Most of you all are working throughout the week, but we should look forward to a time when we can come together and just talk about Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, not just because of traditional requirements. You have to show up at the temple, at least once a week, otherwise people think you're in Maya. We should be developing attraction for associating with one another, talking about Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasad together. So Prabhupada recognized that this is the life and soul of a devotee congregation. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti vikarna rasayana kata. When devotees come together, sincere devotees, that means devotees dedicated to making spiritual advancement, the talks about Krishna become more powerful and sweeter. And as the congregation makes more and more spiritual advancement, they, just by hearing and talking about Krishna, go higher and higher through the stages of bhakti. Anything else? Yes?
Why? Who is Krishna?
Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. There's nothing more accurate than that. He's the supreme enjoyer. He's not the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer. He delegates those activities to expansions of expansions of expansions. Krishna himself simply enjoys. That's why he always carries a flute, to let you know he's all play and no work. All right, think about that. Yes.
Dear Maharaj, thank you so much for coming and teaching us. The bodyisms you were talking about earlier, do you feel like there's any progress within the various religions to break down some walls, to go beyond, to have some unity?
Go beyond what?
The bodyisms, the limitations that...
How many temples, churches, mosques, synagogues do you go to where you hear when you walk in the door, you're not the body? In fact, you may hear the opposite.
I do notice
Body nationalism, body religious nationalism. Often you'll hear that these days. And our religion will protect us against being overrun, replaced, and outbred.
so it's adding to.
Hmm?
It's adding to the problem.
That's right. This is the age of Kali. Dharma becomes adharma. No other questions? Yes.
My question is that even in chapter 1, as you mentioned, an exalted devotee like Arjuna feels anxiety, gets distressed about his material life problems. So for I'll speak for myself, super conditioned soul like me, how do we keep on going? How do we not give up in our bhakti practices, even if we know that this is the essence, this is the answer? How do we control the mind?
Look what Arjuna did. He, by Krishna's arrangement, is going through a breakdown just to show you how to solve the situation. Krishna arranged for that Arjuna would be having what we call today a complete psychological breakdown, so that you could see what it's like and what the solution is. And what was Arjuna's solution? Krishna, friendly talks are over. I'm your student, please instruct me. Shishyash teham shadimam tvam prapanyu. All right, I think Vedasar Prabhu has some announcements.
I want to ask a question based on I wanted to ask a question based upon what you had said. How do we know that we're hearing Krishna, or following the proper instruction, or doing what we're supposed to do to please Krishna?
That's why Krishna says, Tadvidi pranipatena. If you want to know the truth, I've explained so much. We're in chapter 4 now. I've said so much about different yagyas, different karmas, different duties, obligations. If you want to cut to the chase and sort it all out, then you approach my representative. Inquire submissively and render service. And what will be the proof that you've done that process successfully? Next verse. Yajgatrana punarmoham. You won't be in illusion anymore. You'll see that all living beings are my parts and parcels. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.